Hi folks, with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about equity in education. Now, this has been an issue going around for some time, and it was even beginning when I was still at high school, this idea of I remember, firstly, before I go on to a bit of background here, there's an American former educator who's a Jewish homosexual, no less, who believes that we have to engage, that school is the biggest and best opportunity we have to re-engineer society by applying equity principles, equal outcome equity principles to the education system, which means not only does nobody fail, but everybody gets first. Everybody comes first. There's no idea of that. Someone's going to come first or second. No. Nobody fails. Everybody comes first. Now, there's a few ways of achieving this. One is if somebody flunks an exam, well, that doesn't really matter. You can just give them the answers to the exam and let them sit the exam again after you've given them the answers. Then that's one way of doing it. If they hand in an assignment that's not good, then you can again give them the answers or give them a perfect assignment and say, look, do it again. And by the way, this is how it should look. They can sit the test or do the assignment 100 times if they want. There's no limit to it. They can just keep on going until they get the A grade. And again, you give them the answers to it. So if they don't turn up for class, if they've been given lengthy detention or something for seriously bad behavior at school, none of that should stop them, prevent them, or limit them in getting an A grade sort of pass out at the end of the year, or getting their diplomas and things like that. That should all be just handed to them. And this is how you create equity, and this is how you create equality. This is how you create an equal society. Now, it's obviously very communist in its thought process, and it's unsurprisingly come from a Jewish homosexual. But the idea that this can be achieved or is somehow good for society is what we can debate. I'm sure if you enforce it, brutally enough, I suppose you can do this sort of thing. But I just want to go back in time, and it's been, these sort of sentiments have been around for a while, but very patchy. It has been universal. Some schools may adopt it, others not, and they're trying to get a universal application of this all across the United States, and that's probably the bigger issue here. So let's sort of have a look at this. Now, I remember a teachers' union, and teachers' trade unions were always powerful. I mean, they are today, and they were then. And when I was a kid, and they were having a debate about this equal outcomes thing, and the debate. And I got detention. I've mentioned this in other videos. I got detention this day, and it was a hot day, so all the windows and doors were open, and the teachers. The detention room was right next to where the teachers' meeting room was, so I could hear every word. Not that I gave a shit. I wasn't even listening to it. I was keen to get out and go to the beach, whatever it was that I wanted to do on that day. But because the voice was so raised and the argument so impassioned, I ended up listening and taking notice, and I'm glad I did, because it was an early education for me on affirmative action and equity and equal outcomes and race, gender, hustling, and all that sort of stuff. It was all in that meeting, that teachers' meeting. So the some teachers, again, the more communist one, interestingly, there were two Jewish teachers, both of whom argued passionately for it. The argument was that, look, boys, this was a school of 99.9% straight white people, so race wasn't particularly an issue here. It got mentioned as an aside, but and I wondered why are you talking about sort of black people. There aren't any black people here. But anyway, the issue is more about gender. So the claim was, well, boys are coming first in everything, all the main subjects. I mean, girls that might be coming first in cooking classes or something, but that's only because there are no boys in the cooking classes. So boys come first in everything, and by a decent amount. If a girl even came in the top 10, and we're talking like, say, I don't know, 150 kids in each year. So girls even came in the top 10. It was like a wow, whoa. It was really noteworthy. There was an intake of breath around the room. So these teachers argued, well, that's wrong. That's a social wrong. Others argue, well, if whoever comes first comes first. If you want to come first, work harder. Hit the books and work harder. That's it. But then there were, the other side came back and said, well, no, society is structured to oppress women and girls aren't encouraged, not given the chance. There, blah, blah, blah. And then the other side argue, well, they can go to the library just like anyone else. The library's there for anybody. Anyone can get those books out. Anyone can study hard. Girls mature more earlier and they have boyfriend troubles and this sort of thing. So the arguments were vague and airy-fairy, but the upshot was that the activist teachers said, well, what we have to do is we have to create equal outcomes. And to do that, we have to fudge the grades. We have to give girls higher grades. We have to give girls, easier grades. We have to mark them, and so on and so forth. So it was agreed at this meeting that they would give in the area of, say, English and poetry, or whatever those arty subjects were, the humanities typically, that they would give girls must come first in those subjects. Boys, there would still be merit-based exams in there, but they conceded that wherever it was merit-based, straight white boys would come first. That was conceded. That wasn't even an argument. The argument was that it's not fair that straight white boys come first. We have to do something to alter the natural organic trajectory of things by undermining standards and lowering standards and so on. So that's back when I was a kid. I was like, I don't know, 14 or something when I heard that. I thought it was really weird. I thought, why would anybody want to undermine? Shouldn't an exam be the determinant? I mean, if you flunk the exam, then you need to work harder. That before next exam, you got to hit those books. That's how it works. But that wasn't something that they looked at on the basis of communist social equity, that it was bad for society if the brightest, hardest working people came first. That was somehow a moral wrong and it had to be redressed. So that was something that I was exposed to back then. Now, it wasn't at every school, nor was it universally applied, and it was a bit of a stop-go thing. Some teachers agreed, some didn't. Some thought it was a great idea. Most of the women teachers thought it was a good idea, unsurprisingly. Most of the men didn't, unsurprisingly. So it was already dividing along gender lines, and the most activist teachers, as in the union, activist and union teachers, were also very much for it. There should be equal outcomes. So out of the 8 core subjects at school, 4 boys should come first in 4 and girls should come first in 4. That's equity. That's social equity. That's good for society somehow. But not one of the girls would have come first had it not been for the lowering of and undermining of standards. So that now, just on the matter of assignments, being that this activist in the US, this gay Jewish activist in the US is saying, is that if a minority kid flunks an assignment or hands in an assignment that's piss poor, you give it back to them and say, well, these are the answers you should have given, do it again. And you keep on giving it back to them and letting them do it again until they get an A grade. If they don't do it again, then you give them a pass, but you may not give them an A grade, or maybe you do. So they can say that, well, Deshaun tried hard, so we'll give him an A. But his assignment was crap. Who cares? We're talking equity here, not merit. Now, the view is that they come into this is that merit will will privilege, as they call it, the word privilege, will privilege straight white boys, or indeed, like I don't know, Chinese kids and things like that. Or if you look at the Asian kids, I noticed with the Japanese, they're excellent, absolutely excellent at rote learning. And as I've mentioned a number of times before, I listened to this Japanese guy in a Japanese nightclub sing and play 10 Beatles songs. And he did them all perfectly, to the point where I thought that he must speak quite good English. But I noticed in his formation of guitar chords, I'm a bit of a muser, that he wasn't doing proper, the guitar chords. He was just bar chording with a finger up and down the whole neck of the guitar. And what he'd done was he'd recreated every sound that he'd heard. He just recreated the sound without knowing what he was doing. So he wasn't playing the proper guitar chords. He couldn't speak a word of English, but he just recreated the sound without having any of the discipline or the learning. And this is what Asians are very good at. And I've noticed this with Chinese and Japanese. They are very good at that, recreating something without understanding the tiniest little bit about it. Anyway, they did quite well in exams, or some exams. But the view is that a merit-based education and pass or fail exams will overwhelmingly benefit non-black brown groups, and this will create an unequal society. An unequal society is somehow an evil within itself, and we have to do everything we can to stop it. And if we have to take away merit to do it, then we're fine with that. That's okay, because we then have this equal outcomes thing. And if all society suffers as a consequence for these lowered and lowered and lowered and lowered standards, well, so be it. But that's a price well worth paying for equity, so the activists assert. Now, I came across this as a kid. I remember doing an assignment. I was briefly at a school where there was a lot of minorities. Thankfully, I wasn't there very long. But I was at a school with a lot of minorities, and it happened in one of the assignments we got, and I came first in this assignment. Handed it in, and I got, I don't know, 90% or whatever it was. And the teacher congratulated me. Well done, Billy Bob, and that was good work, and da-da-da. So I got that. But he went to all the brown people, the Lebanese, the Maltese, the Arabs, and all those people. And he went to them, only them, and he gave their assignments back. Actually, it was a couple of white people he gave to, but anyway, he gave the assignments back and said, look, no, I'm not going to pass any of you. This is substandard work, but you can have them back and you need to redo it. And this is the information that you need to have. So he even wrote in what they needed to do. And I asked him about it, and I was, I don't know, 11 years old, something like that. I was a little bit put out by it because I had missed one subject or one piece of information that I could have put in and maybe would have got 100% or 99% or something. And so I said, well, why are they getting it back? Why don't you give it back to me? He said, no, you've already done well. You've already done a really good job. Why would I give it back to you? And I said, well, I can do that last bit. And he said something to me that sort of it stuck in my mind, and I wasn't sure what to make of it at the time. But he said something like, "Look, you're never going to be, you're never going to take this up as a career or a field of work or something like that. So unless you're going to be a doctor of metallurgy, so don't worry about it. You've done well. Leave it at that. These guys, they won't have any career options outside of doing this sort of grunt work, and this is really the introduction to that. So that's why we're giving it back to the brown boys, the brown and black boys, or mostly brown, because this is they've got nowhere else to go other than do this sort of work. So he gave it to on the basis that, so it was like a concept of social engineering, or in a way back then, to say, well, you guys are never going to, this is the only thing you guys can ever do. So what we're going to do is cut you extra slack and so on. And we're going to, it's better, you'll probably learn something by getting the assignment back and having to redo it than if you just get a flunk. It's no good flunking you guys. It won't encourage you to work harder or hit the books. But giving you the assignment where you're compelled to come back with a better quality product, then through that you might learn something, whereas you won't. So I do understand that thought of giving assignments back, saying, no, do it again, do it again, do it again. And do it 100 times you have to, but and each time it comes back, maybe it's a little bit better than it was before. Maybe they learned something from it. So I kind of get that idea, but I just don't think it's a merit-based thing because it doesn't teach responsibility. It means you can fuck something up endlessly or do a substandard job endlessly and you'll be forgiven for it. And that's not how it is in the wider world. So I don't know why you would encourage people to fall into that frame of mind in school. So, but anyway, that's so just looking at the idea of equal outcomes in education, the activists and the social engineers, they tear themselves to pieces to get control of the education system and the school curriculum, because I think that's the epicenter of social engineering. But consider the effect on me when I saw the these things going on at school, where they were artificially giving girls first place just on the basis of social equity. And societal restructuring and engineering, I came away with the view that's a bad thing. Even though I was only like 14 or something at the time, I came to no, that's a bad thing. That's going to lead us to a bad place. Where if you extend out that argument over time and into other areas and its knock-on effects and so on, this is taking us to a really bad place. And even at 14, I knew that. And yet look where we are today. So it doesn't affect everybody in the same way. I look at that with horror and think it was a bad thing again back then, and even more so today. Whereas there were those who say, well, no, this is a great thing. It creates this illusion of social equity, and that's a much better thing to strive for than a merit-based system. But I want a merit-based system. I want people, bright kids that do well at school, that go on to do well at college and start up businesses and find the cure for cancer, and the businesses that they start up employ lots of people and they invent rockets to the moon and all this. I want that. I don't want a society of nobodies where everyone's either guilty to try hard or do better or is too stupid to do it anyway. I mean, what does that accomplish, in terms of the overall net value of the assets in society, the intellectual assets? We're just devaluing that all the time, but not getting anything back on the other side. You're with Tacitus today, your pushback channel. Thank you for listening.